Ruth was born in Nigeria. Her mother was born in Chicago. Her father was born in Rasht, Iran. Her sister was born in Portugal. As a teenager, Ruth's struggle was not knowing where she truly belonged. She knew she was an American because that is what her passport told her. However, she felt that she belonged more in Nigeria. Ruth always knew that she wasn't going to stay in Nigeria because her family would continue to travel back to the United States. Ruth always felt a misplaced sense of identity when her family moved back to the United States. She felt she didn't have a place in her new home and in the U.S. because she was different culturally from everyone else. When people in Nigeria would ask her where she was from, she would tell them America. When she was in the U.S. and Nigerian people would ask her where she was from, she would say Nigeria. Ruth felt conflicted over where she truly belonged in the world. Ruth felt disorientation when in the U.S. because everything was different culturally than what she knew in Nigeria. In high school, Ruth decided that she would keep it a secret that she was ever in Nigeria in order to keep herself from being different from the other kids. Ruth would push herself away from other people in order to avoid the feeling of having to leave the people that she cared about. When Ruth was 39 years old, she realized that she needed to obtain an understanding of who she is and what her story is. She had received an article in the mail that described who third culture kids were. Ruth was relieved to know that she wasn't alone and that there were other people all over the world that were facing the same issues of not knowing their identity. Ruth uses her understanding of being a third culture kid to be helpful in her psychological development as an adult because she became more involved in sharing with other people and helping other people find their place in the world. She uses her understanding to help other people to not get held up by the challenges of being culturally different from other people and to develop a sense of identity. The 7 components that make up a cross-cultural kid are being a third culture kid, bi or multicultural, mixed race, an immigrant, a refugee, educational, and or a minority. This definition is different because it involves many ways in which people can be culturally different from other people in a society and how they can face identity issues. Ruth's definition of a cross-cultural kid is a child who has interacted in their developmental age with people who are of a different culture in meaningful ways. There are 2 big challenges that a cross-cultural kid faces. One challenge is identity because there is always the question of who am I, where am I from, and the biggest question of all is where do I belong? When people constantly move globally, they have to learn new cultural trends and rules, and they become outcasted because they may look and think differently from other people. The second challenge that cross-cultural kids face is unresolved grief. When the grief of losing one's identity and status of who they are is not properly processed, it can later come out in different manners such as aggression, depression, or denial. Many people may not understand why they have grief, such as Ruth, who felt that she was living a perfect life and did not have any reason to feel grief. Many people may not have the time to process their grief when they enter a new place or culture, or may not have the means of understanding where the grief is coming from and how to deal with it. One common coping mechanism that young people might use to adapt as a cross-cultural kid is becoming a chameleon. They try to blend in with their surrounding culture and be who they think they should be instead of being who they really are in order to avoid seeming different. A second common coping mechanism is being a screamer. They try to convince people that they are not different, but it seems that they are trying to convince themselves more than other people. They cannot be themselves because they are always trying to convince themselves to be someone else. They know who they are not, but they don't know who they are. A third common coping mechanism is being a wallflower. They don't try to blend in, and they can't be themselves either. Parents can assist their children in adapting to a global lifestyle that is highly mobile by comforting them in a time of grief, giving their kids time to grieve, and finally giving them closure or a funeral with the place that they were living in before by saying goodbye or giving thanks. Parents can celebrate their culture with their kids and recognize the gifts that come with being a cross-cultural kid. I find myself unable to relate to this video as I do not view myself as a cross-cultural kid. However, when I was growing up, the thought of being able to travel to different countries around the world had always fascinated me. However, watching this video has also made me realize that the grass is always greener on the other side and not everything on the surface is what it seems. This video has made me realize a new side of being able to travel across many countries as a child and trying to find your place and identity in the world.